Welcome to round four of the AFL reviews by us at Wooden Spoon Data. My name's Woody, and we're here with Kris. How you doing this
Hey
week,
guys.
Kris?
Yeah, good man. Yourself? Watch a bit of
Yeah,
footy?
yeah, not bad at all. Finally got a St Kilda win, which was nice. And yeah, didn't come in the way I'd hoped, but otherwise, good results. But yeah, I suppose look, we don't waste too much time here and get into the first game of the round, Adelaide versus Melbourne. Look, I guess to keep it quick, I'm going to get straight into Adelaide. I think their season's basically done. They had an opportunity and they squandered it. Do you think any different, mate?
No, it looks that way. Like 0 and 4. It's a hard. I don't think they can climb back. Like you'd still think they're favourites most home games, but that's probably not enough to get them over the line. Now they have to start winning away and at home, and it's a big ask for them. I think.
Well, look, they've got Carlton this week as well, away from home, and that'll most likely be 0 and 5. And to be honest, I don't know if any teams made it from 0 and 5 to make the finals in the AFL era. I double check, but I think there's none. So
Sydney, I'm pretty sure did it. What were they? They were 0 and 6, weren't they?
did they?
What year was that? I
Oh,
can't
that was a few
remember.
years ago. You might be right, actually. You might
Yeah.
have got me on that one. But yeah, it's very unlikely at this point for to see them coming back. And yeah, and I don't see much for their future. I guess do we start looking at off-season plans at this point for Adelaide? What's the thoughts?
Harrison Petty again. I reckon that's what they're.
But do
If
they
I
do
don't, I
they
don't, I don't think it makes a huge difference. I don't know if Harrison Petty's going to be the difference.
I don't think he could, but also you'd as Melbourne supporters, you'd be wanting a first round draft pick for him, and that'd be looking at potentially being a top five pick at this point, and you're not going to give that up for Harrison Petty. So, I mean,
Nah, it's sort of one of them hard ones where he's probably worth more than what he's worth, and you know what I mean. Like
yeah,
it's a tough
he's
one to crack.
he's at this point, I don't see him leaving unless potentially it's to Port, with some options there potentially. But yeah, look, going forward, I mean, who do we like still? Who's going to definitely be there going forward for Adelaide?
How do you mean, like players?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Fogarty's going to be there. Thilthorpe, if he can get over his injuries. You've got Rankin and the other small forward,
For
Rochelle.
Shelley. Mm.
But yeah, what do you think? Who stays on? Who do they start cutting?
I don't think it's that big of a problem yet, man. I think they've still got like the makeups of a decent team. Like showed last year, they've got some talent. I just think like maybe last year they're a little bit ahead of where they're actually at. I still think they're on a build. I don't think
Yeah,
it's doom and gloom completely.
I
I think
think
they've got like a lot of good players.
the only issues I potentially see is the reliance on Walker still, and maybe
Yeah,
just not
they got
quite having a defense yet.
Silthorpe is to come back. I know he's not setting the world on fire, but I think he's progressing really well. I think he's on track to be a very good key forward.
Definitely, definitely. Look, I suppose, look, if we're going to look into the games really quickly, I'd also quickly touch on Andrew Whelan's sheets for the week. He goes over them every week. We like to have them on the side there. With Adelaide versus Melbourne, Adelaide did have a minus 18 plus minus for the game in terms of expected score. So look, they definitely could have made it a closer game. There was a lot of kind of sort of semi-easy misses, and just not enough advancement of the ball in that sort of first quarter when they held a bit of sway there. But yeah, look, for me, it comes down to they do need to keep improving. Their backline needs to hold up a bit better than when their midfield's losing. Their midfield needs to stop just losing these clearances non-stop. And yeah, there's a few things to improve on. Maybe last year was a bit above their expected output. So I guess we'll see by the end of the season.
I think as far as their season is now, like if they got to concede that they're not going to really have a threat for finals, do they start putting some more players through the midfield, maybe.
I think that's the go, and I liked a little bit of what I saw of Saligo. He did all right.
Yeah.
A few good, like 81.5% disposal efficiency. Generally just did well, but yeah, I think you're right. They need to think to the future. But look, moving on to Melbourne, they got the game done, but they didn't look convincing until say mostly that third quarter, like a little bit in the second and third quarter, they kind of came out and really scored. But that last quarter, they were on the ropes and held on. And I don't know, do they have the firepower, do you think, to kind of really threaten for a flag?
I'd say yes. I think they're really well placed. Like, I heard in the commentary that their bottom six as good as it's ever been. I think that's a very good call.
Yeah,
I think they're a more rounded team than they're even their premiership year. Whether they've got the same sort of drive and talent. I mean, some people have got older. Some people. I don't think anyone's in more form than they were then. If you know
yeah.
what I mean.
I mean, one thing I would note is Clayton Oliver had quite the down game. Really not up to what you'd normally call his sort of standard. What do you think about it?
Oh man, like he doesn't play many bad games, does he? I think like you can count on one hand the amount of bad games he's played throughout his career. So like, just wipe it off and give him next week. If it keeps up, maybe say something. But yeah, I don't think it's anything to talk about just yet.
Yeah, yeah, I tend to agree. Look, I think it's one to keep an eye on for the future. If they were to have lost that game, I think we'd be talking about it more. But yeah, clearly not a major issue right now. Look, all in all, they got it done, and that's what you want from Melbourne. We'll move on to the next game of Brisbane versus North. North wasn't quite as competitive as weeks past. Obviously, Brisbane's good, and that was kind of what you expected from them. But is it kind of enough? Like it was a big win. Um, would you kind of say that was what needed to be done by Brisbane?
Yeah, like honestly, I wasn't super convinced by Brisbane in that match. Like I thought like their problems have been lately is sort of like after half time they sort of don't come out with the same spark, and I thought that was the same thing against North, except North didn't punishment as much as
Yeah.
Colton. Who else was it?
They've put a few people in these past weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look, no, you bang on because they essentially got up to a 50 odd point lead at half time, and then it didn't really change much, like a ton from there. Like they won by 70. So um, yeah, no, I see your point, and maybe it's something to keep an eye on. It's not something I've particularly noticed from Brisbane, but yeah, in terms of North, I liked Comben in defence. I think it's a potential one that they've found. He's been trying to get a game in the forward line for a while, so it'd be good if they could get him in the side for one, and then plug a hole that they've needed to plug for two. So yeah, really liked their well his efforts there. But Brizzy's tools did stand up despite Comben's efforts. I think it was five from Danaher and three from Hipwood. Um, did you think that was the game that Hipwood needed to kind of get the monkey off the back and get the reporters off his back?
I don't know, man. I think Hip was just always going to be inconsistent at this point. I don't think he's going to
Yeah,
ever be a world breaker. But
yeah,
like, yeah, I think like he's a good second forward, and I think that's the sort of games they'll have. But I think like yeah, they showed last year they don't need them to kick 8 goals to win, but it certainly helps.
yeah. Definitely, and I think look if they can get a little more consistency, it might be what gets them over the line in the finals and actually get a premiership. Um, looking at Kai Lohman, he had his first game, full game, 18 disposals, two goals, and eight score involvements. I was really impressed by him. Did you get much of a chance to see him?
Yeah, yeah, I watched the game, and yeah, you see, he played all right. He was just sort of there a couple of times. I thought I wouldn't say it was super outrageous, but like a very solid game.
Mm.
I'm surprised it was his first full game. I didn't realise he'd been subbed for the what was this his 18th game?
Well, I think it's this year, not
Ah, his first full game this year.
entirely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so he has just been sub this year, but yeah, I liked it. I thought he did well, and I think he deserves a spot going forward. Especially with their injury to it. I think it was it Bailey got injured towards the end there. I'd have to double check,
yeah.
but
I'm not sure. Sorry.
no, that's all right.
Yeah, but I thought Loman was good.
No, he definitely.
He's definitely fight for the spot.
Yeah, and it was Bailey injured, so yeah, it potentially gets that spot going forward for a few weeks, which would be good. Look, wrapping up on that, did you have any sort of thoughts before we moved on to Port Essendon?
Yeah, no, I think like North for me, like I just think they've got some good talent, but the back line just looks like a worry. Like you said, like they've got good players back there too. It just doesn't seem to be cohesively working as a AFL standard unit.
Yeah,
If you
tend to agree.
to my eye, yeah,
Yeah, it's
it seems
hard.
like they didn't replace Mackay, and that's just it's got to hurt.
Yeah, they didn't, but look, I mean that wasn't changing the outcomes of the games. Like Mackay had his 10th win ever in the AFL the other week,
Yeah,
so it's kind of not going to change a ton in that regard for me. But yeah, no, they need to improve. Where that comes from, I'm not 100% sure. They're starting to get a few little things together. I like Eddie Ford in the forward line. I like a few of their forwards. But yeah, it's just not quite there yet. Moving on to Port Essendon. I know you probably don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, the
yeah,
Bombers spouted on about their edge and really didn't show much. I start to wonder whether Martin's best position is in defence, despite the kind of disposals he's getting. Is it really hurting in the way that they want? And yeah, I guess because his score involvement is down from 2023 to 2024, and being off the halfback, you kind of wanted him to be launching a bit more. He's down from 24.9% to 17.3, so there's a reduction there of about a fifth. I suppose, yeah. What do you think? What do we think Essendon needs to improve upon?
a fair bit.
Yeah.
It wasn't a pretty game at all to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Gresham. He looks like he's fitting in at Essendon a bit, but yeah, I don't know where the turnaround really starts. It feels too similar to last year.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like with the Nick Martin thing. Sorry, it's
Mm,
like I don't know. Like the backline, it seems to be working for him. He's doing all right, but like the wing arguments there for sure.
yeah, and I think for me, it's just Essendon isn't getting enough scores to kind of really like end games for their matchup. So essentially, it's can you really afford to lose that extra couple of score involvements from Nick Martin a game by putting him out of defence to move the ball further up the ground? Like if he's moving the ball further up the ground and it's not resulting in goals, is that really helpful? So yeah, for me, it's a question. I think it's a bit of a reassess for Essendon. They've got to maybe sit down and start thinking about magnets. What do you like though? Who do you think kind of played well out of the minutia?
Yeah, I thought Ben Mackay had a really good game, really solid. It was yeah,
Yeah,
like I think it was probably made it look better because Charlie Dixon had a few very clumsy moments and dropped a few marks he probably should have taken. But still, all round, he took a few intercepts. He was quite solid there for us. Looked strong.
yeah, yeah. I think he started to look good. The one thing I did note is it probably would have been nice to have Brandon Zerk Thatcher on your side tonight. But yeah, it seemed like Port played quite well. I was very impressed by their mid three, well four even with Rosie Butters, Horn Francis, and also Drew. Drew has really come along this year. Those four really just they're basically keeping Wines out of the side, and he got a Brownlow what 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Are they keeping him
So
out? I thought he was injured. He was injured, yeah.
well, they say he's injured, but they're not. They only play him 75% of the match when he's playing. So it's like maybe he's injured, but maybe they just don't think he has the tank to go on the outside. I'm not sure, but yeah, they're winning either way, so it kind of doesn't matter. Um, so I guess it will go into the media watch right now. This one's to Ross Lyon. He was asked what happened at halftime between St Kilda's turnaround and basically said, well, we came out and brought out some aliens instead of St Kilda players, and we won the game. So I'd like, as much as I love Ross, he does tend to like skirt real questions a little bit, and I'd like to see him kind of answer that sort of stuff as a St Kilda fan. But yeah, look, that's the other side of the coin of things I'd like to see him in media watch. Look, other than that, I think it's time to move on to who's that footballer. So enjoy.
Who's that footballer? It's Gary Morgroft.
Lucas read a best, wrong side for him, hooks it. Oh! What a Sensational!
All right, so that was who's that footballer. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now we're on to game number 4, which was West Coast versus Sydney. Way more competitive than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if you saw that coming, but I certainly didn't.
West Coast
Did
brought
you
the
get to
heat.
watch it?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I did watch it. It was a good game.
it was actually a really good game, and yeah, looking over this, I think this deserves a little bit more of a proper look over Andrew Whelan's stats. And look, you can see that West Coast didn't really have much time in the forward half in that first quarter. Like Sydney came out, they got their 22 to 12, but they weren't really like ascendant in any way, despite having the forward half dominance. And then it comes out in the second quarter, and then with the breeze that Duggan kind of called for, they had 70% in their forward half. They kicked 35 points, 5 goals, five, and had an expected shots of 40 points. So they turned it on in that second quarter, and I just kind of couldn't believe what I was seeing. If you look, down towards the expected goals shot map, there's just so much in favour of West Coast there. And look, it disappears in that third quarter. They get the wind against them again. But yeah, it was an impressive display by West Coast. They tried to come back in the fourth. It wasn't enough. Sydney kind of figured it out by that stage. But yeah, they were actually competitive for at least half of the match, and that was not something I expected from them. Um, yeah, what was your takeaways, man? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a good game for West Coast. Like, clearly, Sydney was class above, but at that point, they also looked a gear off to where they were a few weeks ago. I think
Definitely.
straight off the bat, though, Isaac Heaney deserves some love for his last 5 week period. It's been pretty
He's
impressive.
amazing. It wouldn't surprise me if he's leading the Brownlow at this point. He's
It'd be hard to
he's
go
just
past
killing
him.
it. It- Yeah, I off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody that's had a better start to the season. So yeah, he's amazing. One thing I did want to mention before we kind of move past West Coast was Reed. I think a few people have mentioned this stat, but he shook 6 tackles for the game. The most for the season so far is Petrarca with 9 all season. So it's a pretty impressive number, and it shows what he could do in the future. Before we leave West Coast, is there any names you wanted to mention as looking quite good? Is there somebody that stood out for you?
I thought like mostly it was their older group, like your Elliot Yeo, your Jeremy McGovern, your Tim Kelly's. I thought they played some very solid games, and like
Yeah,
hopefully they can keep it up. As long as I hope Jack Darling can find some form and really show the young guys that they can be competitive.
yeah,
It'd go a long
yeah,
way, I think.
definitely. I really like Tim Kelly's game. He's been very he just hasn't kind of been there when they've needed him for a little while now, and he went at a really high clip. I think he was over 90% in disposal efficiency. So yeah, really good game from him, and yeah, like to see more of it. Like to see them just getting the help they need in the midfield. Yeah, moving on to Sydney, it was Taylor Adams' first game. He looks good. He was subbed out as a bit of a precautionary play, but yeah, I liked what I saw from him. Did you get much of a chance to see Adams' match?
Yeah, man. Yeah, he played all right.
Yeah, I
I
think
thought it was solid without being anything too special, but that's sort of been his whole career, isn't it? He's sort of always been very solid without being overly flashy or anything.
yeah, bang on. I tend to agree. Like he wasn't super standout, but he's 17 on disposals in three or so quarters of football is kind of what you wanted for a first outing. So yeah, impressed with what he got done there, especially with the surprise matchup from the Eagles of being quite competitive. I think it wasn't expected to be that sort of hit out for him for his first match, and yeah, he came out the other side well. Look, I think that's most of what we could say positively about most sides. Otherwise, let's move on to Freo Carlton. Freo looked competitive, but they were potentially robbed in that last minute. Did you see the footage floating around of the deflection from? Oh, it's starting to rain quite heavily. In case anybody hears that in the background, but yeah, the deflection from James Aish. Did you see that? And what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I saw it live, and even live, I thought it looked touched straight away. Like it was, but
Yeah,
like at the same time, the umpires weren't nearby. Would have been hard to spot. You'd hope they'd be better, but they're always going to miss some.
yeah, bang
Yeah.
on. I don't know. I think the issue comes down to for me, the free that's awarded after. Um, you, yeah, maybe you give that in the center, but the fact it's free then 50 or free then downfield, it feels a
What,
bit too harsh for.
what actually was it? Was it two free kicks or was it one free kick?
I looking back on it, I only see one free kick, but
It's
it's
one free
from what
kick
I
from where they
understand.
are.
Yeah, from what I understand, it can be the case. Like it's up to it's up to the umpire, but
But
I think
I'm pretty sure I
generally
heard an umpire yell out in on the game that like there's a free kick from the centre square.
that's what I thought I heard as well. It's something I'd want to go back and listen to, but yeah, it for me, I felt like Freo was kind of robbed. Um, they played very well all game. It was a tight contest. We don't want to stick too much on that, but yeah, I think they were pretty unlucky there. They probably for me showed they were a step away from really challenging for a premiership.
Hmm.
Carlton's on the
Would
edge
you
of.
say that if they won? Like,
Yeah, I think I would still. Carlton's
yeah.
still on the edge of really challenging from a premiership, and I think if you wanted to say you're in the lineup for it, you'd need to put Carlton away fairly convincingly. Um, and yeah,
I don't think that's right. I think Carlton's right up there as well.
I think they're up there. I just think I don't think they're quite the very top echelons. I think it's hard to move past the Giants for me. Um, Maybe Sydney if they can get their act back together. Maybe Melbourne if their forward line can kind of start working. Port to a lesser extent, but um, yeah, it's for me. Those guys are the ones that Carlton really needs to get past, and if Freo wanted to be a deep finals chance, they probably needed to put Carlton away somewhat convincingly on sort of neutral turf. Um, but yeah, again, it doesn't mean they're out of the shot. For me, it also shows that they're pretty close to the mark. So they
So
need a bit of improvement.
who do you think
Uh,
else do you think puts Carlton away convincingly?
Convincingly, not
You,
many
you, you
teams.
you think Melbourne just beats them easily, do you? I think that's a mashup, Like I think Carlton's right up there. Like
I do, but I
I
think
think
if Melbourne's, I think, got a better defence than Carlton's forward line. I think they've got a better midfield than Carlton's midfield. And I think their forward line on their day could be better than Carlton's defence. It really comes down to if forward line on Melbourne side could click, then yeah, maybe. But
It,
for,
I, I'd agree that Melbourne's the better side, like, but in all lines, yeah. But like, if they played 10 games in a row, does Melbourne win all 10? I don't think they do. I think
uh,
Carlton probably wins 3 or 4 of those games.
maybe. I think yeah. For me, that's still they're still that echelon's behind though. Which and when you're comparing it to like, does Freo want to get deep into the finals? Where are they at? Um, they're not quite ahead of Carlton, you could say after this, and with that, I think it's not a premiership year for Freo, as Carlton has another level to potentially go to, whereas I don't think Freo really does. Um, yeah, look, Carlton could potentially do it. Looking at them, going onto their sort of side of the coin a bit more. They've got a few interesting games coming up. They've got Adelaide, GWS, Cats, Collingwood, Melbourne, and then Sydney. So I think by round 10, the end of all that, we should have a good idea of where Carlton's at properly. I think they're kind of that one step below Premiership side, but they're pretty close. They're not too far off. They're looking good. Yeah, before we were to move on to the next game, do you have any sort of wrap up thoughts?
Yeah, just I'd say Carlton's top 4 bound, and yeah, I
Mm,
reckon Freo's near enough. Like, what is that? 3 wins, 1 loss.
yep.
That's
Yeah, look, it could happen. It definitely could.
You'd think they'd be final. They'd be looking at finals for sure.
They're going to be pushing it for sure. I think there's a probably about a group of 10 or so that are going to be pushing for finals, and Freo's definitely in it. Speaking of two others that'll be pushing for finals this year, moving on to Western Bulldogs Geelong, quite the matchup. Cats get away with a victory, leading majority of the night, but and they lost majority of the stats. So yeah, for me, it's an interesting one. Did you have any thoughts?
I don't know what to take out of that because I feel like most games the Dogs dominate the stat line, don't they? And like they just I can't seem to win them all. Like,
That's it. And I think for me, it also comes down to the grounds are a bit more suited to Geelong at Adelaide Oval. Um, a little bit more narrow. It's not quite as bad as Norwood, but it's a bit slimmer. So yeah, it's one of those ones where for me, I don't 100% know what to take out of this. I'm a little bit more confident in the Cats, now that they really did push the Bulldogs the whole way and got away with the game. I was impressed with a few people. I actually like Tanner Bruin's game a fair bit, from having him last year in Supercoach where he didn't do too much to kind of, watching him a bit this year. He's definitely improved, and yeah, I was surprised and happily impressed. Um, Also, just from the Western Bulldogs side, Riley Sanders just keeps plodding along and doing some great stuff. And look, while we're on it, we might do a little brief cut to uh, Sharon Shenanigans.
Oh, look at this. Great shot of something not so good. Bang!
Yeah, Riley Sanders running the wrong way. Great, just great, hilarious stuff. I think you might have somebody else in mind. Did you have somebody else you were thinking of for Sharon Shenanigans? I think you mentioned something.
I reckon it would have been Harry Mackay running into the goal square and dropping the footy. That
Bang
was it.
on.
That was the
Yeah,
game.
that's right. Yeah, that was hilarious too. And it actually, it's one thing I've been thinking of. Harry Mackay kind of did have his yips back this past match. So yeah, it's something to keep an eye out for. But look, getting back to the Western Bulldogs Cats match, it was a good game. I think we saw a little bit. I'd like to see more over the next month. the Cats are playing Kangas, Lions, Melbourne, and the Blues, and I think we'll start to see a little bit more from them there. Moving on to our unsung hero of the week.
The first to pitch in are those unsung heroes.
Did you want to go first, mate?
Well, from the Cats game, I had Jack Henry. I feel like he's really like I didn't realise how good he was, even being a premiership player. But like it seems like Geelong really missed him last year, and like he's come
Yeah,
back and he's just been very, very solid,
he
unsung.
has. He has been unsung, and I think he's done well this year. The one I wanted to bring is actually also a Cats player, somebody that was potted in his trade to the Cats. Jack Bowes. He played fairly well. He's been holding his spot down, and when you think back that the Cats managed to get a top 7 draft pick, and then Jack Bowes on top of it for a bit of coin, it's a good deal. It looks like a very good deal looking back on it.
Very
So
good deal.
yeah, very impressed by him. I think people talked down on him because of the trade for a little while there. And he's my unsung hero for the week. Moving on to game number 7, we've got Gold Coast Suns versus the Greater Western Sydney Giants. Look, I was impressed by the Suns. I thought the Giants had run away with it, and the Suns really put it to them the whole game. Did you get much of a chance to watch this one, Kris?
I watched no footy today, man. I caught the end of the Hawthorn game, the last quarter, and that was it.
Well, look, that was a good one to catch. I did get to watch this game. I was a little bit setting up for this, but at the same time, I was watching it. Look, for me, the question for the Suns comes down to when you're not looking at their top line, who's the next up? When you've got Anderson, Miller, Rowell, and Flanders playing great most weeks, you've got King playing quite well. Lukosius, majority of weeks playing well, and they're getting games into Walters. They've got that sort of forward and midfield structure. They've got most of their defense with Collins, Buderick, a few others there, but it's that next line of people that I don't think do much for them, and I think they're going to be a year or two away from really challenging. Look, I could be wrong, and I've been wrong many times before, but yeah, they just for me didn't do enough in that mostly sort of the last quarter. Greater Western Sydney, if we look to Andrew Whelan's sheet here, they had 71% in forward half for that final quarter, which really sealed the game and really kind of ended it there. But yeah, for me it was good until that last quarter, and I think the lack of people to help the top liners at GWS just didn't kind of exist to kind of get it done. So yeah, I
Had a
don't know.
lot
Is
of
there?
had
Mm,
a lot of debutants, didn't they? 3 debutants.
they did,
Was
and
one
look,
sub or?
yeah, one of them was sub, and look, the majority played pretty well. But I think it's just yeah that, and I think that might even be something that Hardwick's identified, which is maybe why he brought in so many. But that sort of bottom 6 or so from GW, the Suns rather, just wasn't doing enough today. They probably did a little bit more than some other weeks, but yeah, that's what needs to improve for me going forward. That and forward 50 entries. Um, Looking at the Giants, they had some of their stars really stand up, and Toby Green had a day out, Hogan as well. They secured the win, and their kind of bottom liners were that step above the Suns' bottom liners, and for me that's really what ended the day. In the fourth quarter, there was just that little bit more oomph from the Giants. Um, yeah, any sort of questions before we kind of get on to the Saints Richmond's match, mate? Any questions for me? Haven't seen the
Uh,
match.
did Tom Green and Matt Rowell line up on each other much or?
They did a little bit, but not tons. I was somewhat distracted, so I didn't get to watch it super closely. But yeah, there wasn't a ton of commentary talking about it. I didn't see them line up consistently against each other. there's a few contests where they hit each other and tackled each other, but not not direct from my memory. Moving on to Richmond St Kilda, that was a game I watched very closely, being a Saints fan. Um, Very Jekyll and Hyde from St Kilda. Did not do anything in that first quarter. You'd almost say the first half, kicking only one goal, five. Um, yeah, I guess look, if you were to look to Andrew's stat sheet here, you can kind of see it in expected scores. Richmond was a +5 on that first quarter, and then yeah, St Kilda was negatives on the first half. So yeah, they came out. They got 25-3 first quarter. Second was not much better, and they managed to keep Richmond to a similar amount, one goal one to one goal two. And then finally, St Kilda came out in that third and really started getting some runs on the board. But I mean, you can see it in the shot map. There's next to nothing for St Kilda there in that first half. A goal at the very end of the half, and yeah, it was pretty shocking football. It's yeah, it's not something I hope to see much going forward. It'd be nice to kind of really put Richmond away, but they played to a higher standard than I expected. Yeah, do you have any questions? I suppose.
Yeah. So I was what do you think? What was Richmond like? Are they like? Seems like they got three back-to-back competitive performances.
They were good. They seemed very similar to their performances of old, where they really just kept knocking the football along in that first half. There wasn't clean disposal. It wasn't great. It was really Bolton and Martin running the show, just kind of actually getting disposals, but everybody else was just knocking the ball forward. Um, I I guess yeah, they looked good. They look like they're going to threaten teams. I don't think they're going to be a bottom four side anymore. Um, Maybe if injuries really halt them, but yeah, I don't think so. They even put up a show in that last couple of minutes. If it weren't for Wilson with a little bit of brilliance, he knocked a ball clear with the 4-on-1 in the defensive 50 on the ground and got it out to Wilkie, which cleared it. And then Tyler Sonzi got the ball going into the Richmond 50 and he laid a massive tackle, getting a hold in the ball. So look, there was huge moments from Wilson. There was two goal reviews in the last minute as well, two touches. So
Pardon
yeah,
me.
Richmond. Nah, you're all right. No, Richmond looked good. They definitely look like they're more competitive than I thought. Um, Look, going forward, I think St Kilda needs to review. These aren't the performances you'd expect from a side that really wants to play finals. And yeah, I think it's at this point it's start reviewing to see what to do. They've got a bit of an injury list, but that's no major excuse considering what they managed to do last year. So yeah, for me, it's what they needed, but not good enough. Moving on to Collingwood Hawks, mate. Um, Good match in the end. I was pretty impressed. I was pretty impressed with Hawthorn. We called it a little bit early a couple of weeks ago that this could be a danger match for Collingwood, particularly if they lost against Brisbane. And yeah, Hawks really brought it back down to the wire. If it wasn't for a little bit of brilliance from uh, from Collingwood, then yeah, this would have been game over. What was your thoughts, mate?
Well, like I said, I only caught the last quarter, so to me it looked like Hawthorn was all over them.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last quarter was 4 points to 25, 4 goals won to 4 points. Um, yeah, I mean, they had 57% in forward half. Their expected shots was sitting only at a plus 2.8. So realistically, they could have maybe done a tiny bit more and kicked five straight. But yeah, they did well, mate. And do wonder kind of where Collingwood finishes. They're not looking where I thought they would. This was a good game though for the small forward. Schultz kicked 2-1 for Collingwood and started to really look like he had a lockdown there. He's played another good game, getting into his old side, kicking two. The AFL is going to have to look into him a little bit because there's so many moments where he should have gotten a free.
Yeah, there's a few, was there?
Yeah, I just wonder, like, because I think they've already started looking into it a little bit, and yeah, it's something that it's odd. Like he should be getting
He
more. At the same time, you can see he's
he
kind of ducking.
he,
It's
he
hard
lifts
hard
the
to
arm
feel.
up every time. He plays for him every time. And I know it's just habit
He
at this
does.
point, but it's so hard for the umpires to judge that. And I think
It is.
if he's making them look bad, they're not going to pay him. Like
It's hard because they're there at the same time. Like if you're not tackling right and they're there, they're there. Look, moving
the
on
rule the
to
rule is that if you lift your arm, you don't have to pay it. So if he lifts his arm, they don't have to pay it.
yeah, it is hard to judge, and it's something that's probably instinctive to him in some regards, but other regards, he is just getting slaughtered in moments. But yeah, moving on to the Hawks, they looked like they could win it. I was impressed with Eamon. He got 903 meters gained. Realistically, the inside efficiency killed them. Inside 50 efficiency killed them. They should be doing better with what they've got. They had a few outs this week, and it was the forward line that we've been on a bit that should be killing it week in and week out, blah blah blah. But yeah, it's one that they need to improve on, and I think it's Joel needs to do a bit more. He's getting ball to ground, but he's not clunking anything, and yeah, it should be a little bit better from Hawthorn. Blake Hardwick played a killer game though. I think he got 5 goals in the end. It was quite impressive. He's also out of contract at end of season, so somebody to keep your eye on as somebody that can float forward and back and tag. He's an interesting little player. Look, mate, that's basically the end of our week. Do you have any wrap ups before we move on to the All Australians?
Nah, it was a good week of football. 9 games for the first time for a while.
Yep. Yeah,
Back to the
it was
buys
good
next
for
week.
yeah, it was good for a week. We'll be back to less games next week, but we might have some other content on the channel, which would be nice. Um, yeah, look, moving on to the All Australian.
You're Australian! Be Australian!
We've got the back line there still feeling fairly good with Iden, Pearce, and Stewart. Halfback, we have had a change. We brought in Jeremy McGovern for what was his name? His name was
Will
Tom
Power.
Powell. Will
Will
Powell.
Power.
That was it. Will Powell. I get them confused. Yeah, what do you think? Do you think that's fair? I think while we're still waiting to get this sort of off the ground with the computer doing it for us, mate, do you reckon it's a fair assessment?
Yeah, McGovern's been very good. I didn't catch the Power game today, but it did look a bit down, and McGovern has been standing up tall. Also,
Yeah,
Wanganeen Malera considered, and he would have been worthy as
yeah.
well, I think.
He's getting there. I think another week or so of good games from him, and it's going to be hard to ignore him. Look, moving on to the midfield, it's not really much change there. We left Noah Anderson, Tom Green, and Zach Butters all playing very good games this week. We probably should look at Connor Rosie again coming back in, but it is hard to fit. We've essentially also got following uh, Gorn, Sarong, and Cripps. Sarong had a down match this week, but it probably doesn't remove him just yet. Um, Moving on to the forward line, we again keep it pretty solid with Isaac Heaney, Harry Mackay and Sam Flanders at our half forwards. Tom Papley, Joe Rogan, Jesse Hogan, and Corey Waitman in the forward lines. God, that's funny. Yeah,
Very good.
essentially not too much change there. There is one extra change on the interchange. We have brought in Charlie Curnow for Luke Jackson. I think it's just, I don't know about you. I think it's hard to take Harry Mackay out with one game of getting the yips and a mistake in front of goal. Um, but yeah, with Curnow breathing down his neck and Jackson not particularly having massive games the last two games, yeah, it kind of left the door open for Tall to kind of slot in and take over. So, look, if Harry Mackay has another bad week, I could see him maybe disappearing from the team. Curnow coming into that centre half forward role, and then yeah, we kind of have potentially a free spot on the interchange. But yeah, look, it's coming along. Hopefully, next week we'll be one step closer to getting it done, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks time we'll probably have it sorted around that sort of stage. But yeah, mate, it's coming along. It's been a great week of footy. Before we say goodbye, we've got next week's tips. Melbourne, Brisbane, in Melbourne. Who do you think will win it?
Like Melbourne, I think for sure. I'm worried about Brisbane now. I think next three matches for them are quite hard. They need to win them, but I don't think this will be it. I think Melbourne's in too good form.
Yeah, I tend to agree. The only thing that I could see really going wrong is Melbourne just not kicking enough goals. Other than that, yeah, it seems like it's match made for them. So yeah, I also am tipping Melbourne. Moving on to the next match, Western Bulldogs, Essendon. What are your thoughts, mate? Who are you going?
I've gone the Dogs. I think their midfield is going to be too strong for us, and I feel like you beat Essendon in the midfield, you're probably going to beat them in the game.
Yeah, I've also gone the Dogs. Um, uh, I think their forward line's starting to work. Their midfield's generally been good for a while, and their defense has always kind of been their weakness. And I just don't see enough firepower from Essendon to get it over the line. Moving on to the next game, we've got Giants St Kilda. I'll go first for this one. As much as I'd like St Kilda to win, being away from home, I'm thinking the Giants are going to have too much firepower, that sort of thing. So, do you have the same opinion? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't give Saints any chance, mate. Essendon's rolling.
Yeah, look, St Kilda hasn't been really on form since the Collingwood match, to be honst.
If it was in
Moving on to
Melbourne, you might have a chance.
maybe Telstra Dome, maybe Telstra Dome. Jeez, Marvel Stadium. It's getting late. Carlton versus Adelaide, mate. I think personally this will be a pretty easy Carlton win. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Carlton. The
Yeah,
'05
easy.
Crows.
Yeah, it's looking like they'll be in charge this week, and on top of the ladder with Giants. Look, Suns, Hawks. I think the Suns are going to bounce back. Do you agree?
Yes. I did tip the
Yeah.
Suns.
Yep. I think this is a potential for the Hawks to upset, but I wouldn't tip them. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't do it. Um, the next one, Port versus Freo in Adelaide. What are your thoughts?
Port looking very good. I think this would depend whoever had the home game. If it was in Freo, I might go Freo. If it's in Adelaide, I'll go Port.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think Freo's playing out of their skin at the moment. Um, so yeah, look, maybe that gives them a chance at home, but I think there'll be a little bit of comeback to earth from Freo, and I think we'll see it in this game.
I think
Port should
Freo was
probably win
pretty
both
bad
games.
last year, but they did make finals the year before that. I don't. I think they're
Yeah,
closer than what people realise.
they, yeah, I think we'll see. We'll see. Look, moving on to the next game, we'll go Cats versus North. I'm going Cats in Cardinia. What's your thoughts, mate? Do you agree?
Yeah, Geelong rolling.
It's hard to go against them. For one, West Coast versus Richmond over in Perth. I'm going the Tigers, but I got a sneaky suspicion that West Coast could do it. What are
It'd be
your
great to
thoughts?
see. It'd be great to see. But no,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I think Richmond will get up.
if they can pull off what they did last week against Sydney, they can do it. They can definitely do it. So it'll be a good match, I reckon, and I do think Richmond will win, but I think it'll be closer than people think. So yeah, that's our week's review and the tips for the following week. The All Australian, a few little segments in between. If this is something you enjoyed, leave us a like. They help. If you want to see next week's one, catch up on our future sort of videos. Maybe think about subscribing. That's generally the easiest way to make sure you don't miss something. Other than that, yeah, Kris, thank you for your time, mate. We'll chat more over this week coming, and yeah, to more football, to more St Kilda wins.
Too easy.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll talk soon. Cheers. Thanks for watching.